Welcome everyone to Infinite Realms. My name is Paul. I'll be the DM for tonight. We are starting a new campaign called The Outside using D&D 5e. And the party, they are members of a secluded community deep underground, separated from the surface. When one day large gates opened and they were allowed access to the surface. And a group of adventurers were set together with the task of exploring the outside and seeing if it's safe, if there's people up there, just exploring a bit. And I'll introduce the players now. We have Connor. Tell us, do your intro.
Hi, I'm Connor. I am half of Dice on Ice, where we play games, run games, and we're working on a setting called Cryfoth. We had a Kickstarter that finished. It's awesome. We're currently in the writing phase of that, and it's a lot of fun to work on it. Tonight, and for the majority of this campaign, I will be playing Subject X, this mysterious, hooded, masked, clad in a full-body suit of copper and leather, named Subject X, branded with the sigil of the mysterious and underground organization called the Watchtower from inside the inside. I am very mysterious. No one knows much about me, probably not even myself, and I am geared up and ready to go into the outside to face what perils may be out there.
Thank you, Connor. And then we have Jason.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jason, and tonight I will be playing Swifter Than Swords. Swifter Than Swords is a hob monk, sort of like a cross between like a half-orc and a goblin. He's about 6'1", with dark gray skin, black eyes. He's a bit older. I think I mentioned he is a monk that serves at a temple in the inside called the Temple of the Pure, which is dedicated to the preservation of hob culture and lore. They do accept those who have hob blood in their veins, but Swifter Than Swords is a pure blood hob, meaning he was born from, obviously a male and a female hob, and they are very rare in the inside because the various races have intermingled so much over the years. Bit of a stern, gruff individual, not the most pleasant person in the world, but he's interested in seeing what the outside has to offer in terms of new information and discoveries.
Thank you, Jason. And then we have Karen.
Hi, I'm Karen. I'm going to be playing Cacophonix. He's a hob elf mix, playing a bard. He's kind of I'm gonna say not quite a loner, but he's kind of an outcast kind of guy. He's, in our world, he'd be the heavy metal rocker dude who just doesn't get along with people. That's kind of his thing. So when the doors opened up, he was extremely excited about getting out of here, going to see the world, see what's out there, and kind of volunteered to be one of the people.
Thank you, Karen. I think there are two others in the group, but we have Josh Rivera, who may or may not join us tonight, and Chris Johnson, who is unable to make it for this session. I'll give a little more background. The community that the players are from originally had 4 distinct races: humans, dwarves, elves, and hobs. The hobs are little orcish or goblinoid type creature. And there's been a lot of intermingling. It's pretty rare to find a pure blood of any one race, and even ones that claim to be pure blood might even have some mixed heritage. but when the ones that consider themselves pureblood might be, 80% or something along those lines. They might have had maybe like a little bit of intermingling here and there, but they're mostly whatever race they claim to be. And even some, they may have features of other races, like they might have elf ears or, or maybe some fangs or claws or something, but for a bit of variety. Now we start with the party's been probably out for about 3 or 4 days. They set out through the gates, up through the tunnels until they got to the surface, and they found their way on a bit of a rocky path, mountainous area. So they've been walking for a while, and they haven't met anyone. They've seen some creatures. They've probably even hunted a few and just survived off the land for a few days until they finally made it down the mountain and into a bit of a rocky area still. And off into the distance, there is what looks like a forest. The ground is slowly becoming less mountainous, and there's a forest up ahead. And there's some strange lights within the forest that they can see. It's approaching evening right now. What do you guys want to do?
Nothing but the heavy copper-booted footsteps of Subject X would fill this silence as we're trotting along, thud, 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 accompanied by the ominous breathing that this person does. As they're just breathing in and out through this strange rebreather apparatus strapped to the front of their face, as their visage is completely covered by this thick copper and glass mask.
All right, do you approach the forested area, or do you try to circumvent it?
So Swifter Than Swords, who's sort of like wrapped in these like not tattered clothes, but they're nicer clothes, almost like vestments, is kind of hanging back with the group's mule, who he has affectionately named Stone. Lights in this forest, and his black eyes kind of narrow a little bit. He looks over at Cacophonics and Subject X and clears his throat. We are here to investigate. Yes, we should investigate. But caution. Caution is important, especially in these unfamiliar lands. And he's going to start to slowly guide the mule forward in the direction of the nearest light, I guess.
Do the rest of you follow, or are you going to let him go up on his own?
Subject X just gives this nod as you say these words and follows along behind you, along with this mule.
Yeah, Cacophonics just kind of shrugs, whatever, dude, and keeps walking, kind of following him, kind of nonchalantly pretending he's not really worried or anything. Like this is every day.
Now, you guys going in quietly, or you guys just walking up as you've been
If
Okay.
Subject X wanted to be quiet, they could still be heard. So there's no way that me and my loud breathing and my copper armor that clangs and clatters would help me at all with this, approaching stealthily. So I wouldn't approach cautiously. Like, I would approach cautiously, but not sneakily.
So I think Swifter Than Swords, realizing that and being a fairly intelligent hob, would sort of look over at is it cacophonics? I keep wanting to say cacophonics, but I'm not entirely sure that's the right pronunciation.
Cacophonics.
Which one is
Cacophonics.
it? Cacophonics. All right. I was right. All right. So Cacophonics, he looks over at Cacophonics and then back at Subject X, and he walks Stone over to Cacophonics and kind of holds out the reins and just says, "Take the mule. I will go and investigate quietly."
Take the mule. What are you, nuts? Give it to the metalhead over there.
I trust you more than I trust the metalhead.
Fair enough. And with that, he'll grab the rope kind of reluctantly, but he'll take it.
So once Stone is with Cacophonics, Swifter Than Swords is going to attempt to sort of like hikes up this simple cloth hood over his shaved head and his pointed ears, and he's just going to start as quietly as possible, moving towards the forest and the closest light source.
Okay, give me a stealth check.
That is a 16 for stealth.
So as you approach the forest and the lights, it's getting a little dense as you can't really see clearly into it. Give me either a perception or an investigation check.
I'll go ahead and give you perception, as Swifter Than Swords is just sort of allowing his senses to extend beyond him to see if he can sense anything, just like he's been trained to do back in the Temple of the Pure. Ugh, that's not great. That is an 8.
You see like a light, but it's hidden. You can't really see what source it is. Too many trees. It's getting a little dense further in. Did you want to proceed further in?
Swifter Than Swords sort of hesitates for a moment and lays his right hand on the pommel of the short sword dangling from his side. He sort of sighs, and then he's actually going to go back to the group as quietly as possible.
In the meantime, Subject X is kind of standing kind of across from you, Cacophonics. Their arms are kind of clasped over the head of this wicked-looking warhammer that this person is using kind of like a walking stick, or even just like a brace, holding themselves up, just kind of leaning on it a bit, staring, deadpan and emotionless. Not quite at you, but a little bit off. It's one of those weird. You think that they're looking at you, but they're not. There's no eye contact being made. Yet, even with these, steely blue glass rims of the goggles, you still can't even tell whether I'm looking at you, the mule, or something beyond you.
All right. Swifter Than Swords reappears back, almost out of nowhere.
So as he sort of moves out of the trees and sort of brushes some stray leaves off of his simple garments, he looks from Cacophonics to Subject X and says, "Well, I did not see the source of these lights, but No one else seems to have seen me. Perhaps it would be better if we moved forward in a group. Cautiously, of course, but there is safety in numbers, I think.
And with that, Cacophonix will just kind of approach you, throw the rope at you. That's Stone's rope, and just keep going.
Swifter than Sword just like snaps out and grabs the reins before they can hit him in the face or anything, and he frowns this like stony old man frown at Cacophonix's back as he moves forward.
Subject X would follow you, Cacophonix. Just again, silent as always. Just the eerie breathing, just offering you a bit of, counsel and accompaniment in this long and lonesome travel we've had so far.
So you make your way over to the trees where it starts to get a little dense. It's not enough that you can't move around them, and also Stone can make his way through as well. And you can still make out the lights. They seem to flicker, almost maybe moving. And you guys moving any closer, or are you going to avoid the lights?
I'm going to follow those lights.
Subject X will also. And as they are doing so, they're holding one of their palms outstretched. And as it does so, like this purple medallion is kind of glowing at their palm. It's kind of like they're slowly kind of waving it back and forth in front of them.
And as you go, you see, as you get closer, you can make out 4 lights, getting quite large, and there seem to be figures within the lights, or more so, the glowing is coming from the figures themselves. And I'd like you all to roll initiative. Okay, so as you go in, they as soon as they seem to realize you're there, these 4 figures just come at you and start to surround you. Subject X, what would you like to do?
Something whirs inside my metal can of armor. And Subject X wonders whether these beings are immediately hostile or not. Is there any way I can discern that from their behavior, movements, appearance?
As they surround you and get closer, you can see that, well, not in a lot of detail because of the glowing light, but you can see twisted faces, possibly even humanoid, though you don't see a lot of details. And you don't know if it's anguish or anger or something, but you could roll an insight check to try to find out.
No, that's good enough. What I'll do is, my gauntleted hand starts to whir and hum as the purple medallion inset into my palm begins glowing purple. And in my other hand, I grasp the haft, or the shaft of my war hammer, tight and bring it kind of up. I'm going to ready an action to cast a spell. If one of these figures attacks or otherwise harms any of me or my companions.
All right then, Swifter Than Swords.
Swifter Than Swords looks over at as Subject X, and his eyes narrow a little bit, seeing what is clearly preparation for some kind of spell to be cast. Since we've been traveling together for a little while, he knows that this entity, whatever it is magically gifted and doesn't really sit too well with him. He sort of snorts a little bit before turning his attention to these illuminated figures. He is going to back up maybe like 5 or 10 feet just to the closest tree with a low-hanging branch. And he is going to, I guess this would be a free item interaction. He's just going to tie stone to the branch to keep the mule from running away. And then for his normal action, he is just going to take the dodge action. Sort of his hand on the pommel of his short sword, his left hand out with the fingers splayed, just quietly muttering to himself under his breath, "Purity of mind, purity of body, purity of heart." His eyes sort of darting from one illuminated figure to the next.
All right, Cacophonix.
So do they look like corporeal or just misty?
It's hard to say. With the light glowing around them, you can see through the aura of the light, but not really see through them.
Yeah, so then Cacophonix is just kind of looks at them all, and he's going to approach the one right in front and reach his hand out, kind of to as if you were going to pat somebody on the shoulder as you're passing. Just basically he's trying to see if these are real.
Your hand does feel something solid underneath the glowing light.
When he contacts something, he would kind of say, "Hey man, no, how you doing? Like, whereabouts are we and where'd you come from?"
The only response you get is a moan. It's a roll an insight check.
11.
You can't tell if it's if it's a moan or groan or even a growl. You don't know if it's being aggressive or if it's maybe in pain or something. You're not quite certain.
I say, "Hey, the back got your tongue? Can you speak? Hello, I'm talking to you."
Okay, and the 4 of them actually will attack you now. And let's see. Cacophonix. First one hits you. The one that you were touching reaches out and touches you. You take 4 points of damage. It almost seems to suck the life out of you. And it feels like almost like a cold burning sensation, and your your arm where it hits you starts to wither a little. The second one that was close by also reaches out and 6 points of damage as well, and you're feeling really weak right now.
I'm feeling so weak that I actually faint.
Yes. Okay. Maybe you guys do need a barbarian. Okay, and the next one reaches out. Oh, you were holding an action.
Yeah, I was gonna just zot the ones that are attacking.
Sure.
Our little smooth talking bird that ended up, causing their own death.
Actually, I'll let you jump in. Maybe you take one out before it damages.
Yeah, so I imagine like as it's reaching out, I'm like, boom, and from the palm launches this sphere of energy, of pure purple energy that just launches, almost like just a ball from my palm, probably about marble size, as it just whizzes towards it. It gets a 24 to hit.
That hits.
And it does 6 points of force damage.
And you take one out, so Karen, you don't take the 6 points of damage from the second one. So only one hits you. Okay, and so next, subject X, one of them comes at you and misses you. Probably maybe you stepped forward and it just went to when you went to shoot that one, it wasn't prepared for your sudden action. And Swifter, one reaches out and touches you. Did you have an action or ready to action? Or no?
I had the dodge action, so that attack would have been a disadvantage.
And it still manages to reach out, and 6 points of necrotic damage. Okay, subject X. How are you going to retaliate?
I would immediately just bring my warhammer down, grabbing the shaft in both my hands, boom, right across at this one that's nearby to me. And that is a 22 to hit.
Well, that hits.
And that would do 7 points of bludgeoning damage.
And as you hit a second one, you hit it, you connect with it, and the glow, like it just crumples to the ground and the glow just slowly fades away. Okay. You doing anything else?
I actually move up alongside Cacophonix as just this tall, broad-shouldered figure, clad in armor, just boom, 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 in 3 large steps, just makes their way right up to kind of back to back with you, Cacophonix, just to help engage these entities that are attacking you.
All right, swifter than swords. How are you going to respond to the one that hit you?
Yeah, Swifter than Swords is looking pretty rough. He sort of staggers back. Is it just the one that's near me, or are there multiple?
I could say you're close enough. There's one that's attacking you, but you're within. You're close to another. The one that's attacking Cacophonix.
Okay, so he sort of Swifter than Swords staggers back from that initial touch, sort of grunting, and then he glares at the one that hit him, and there's just this flash of anger in those dark eyes, and he sort of bares his teeth and just says, "You face one of the pure, fool!" And then he sort of snaps his arms to his side and mutters this quick, almost too fast and humanly fast arcane phrase under his breath as these yellow blades of crackling energy shoot out at the 2 that are within 5 feet of him. I need a dexterity saving throw, please.
Now, does this hit friend and foe or just foe?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it hit friend and foe. So each creature within the 5-foot range of Swifter Than Swords.
Okay, we'll say
I was
odd.
kind of angling to get between the two
Yeah.
baddies and hit the others.
We'll say you can do it. That's fine. And what's the DC?
That would be an 11 DC.
They both succeed, surprisingly.
Yep. So the blades, they sort of flash. The entities dodge, and the blades sort of fade. And Swifter Than Swords has beads of sweat dripping down his gray skinned face, and he is not looking very good at all.
All right, Cacophonix, you're up.
So kind of as soon as the thing in front of him hit him, he was like, "Dude, that's so rude!" And then he'd turn around to Swifter and say, "Man, you rock!" And as he says that, Swifter feels a little bit better. I'm casting Healing Word on him for 6 points of healing. And then for my action, I would like to string a bunch of expletives together, calling up this light in front of me, this no good. I'm very bad at it. This no good light fairy, and I'm vicious mockering him, trying to makes a wisdom saving throw, DC 13.
It does not succeed at that.
Okay, so it takes 2 points of psychic damage and has a disadvantage on its next attack roll before the end of its next turn. Yeah, so a disadvantage on its next attack roll.
All right then. The last two, one seems the one that's on you seems to roar a bit, and just is just slashing in the air and just can't seem to just make contact with you. And other one on Swifter Than Swords also doesn't seem to connect as well. You seem maybe your words really struck their heart. Subject X, you're up.
So I had a climbing cat that was using my desk, filled with various breakable objects as their obstacle course. Subject X sees there's two standing still, correct? And so would just, again, just bring across the Warhammer with a quick, swift strike, held in both hands on the one on Cacophonix. 16 hit.
Yes, that hits.
Doing 11 points of bludgeoning damage.
Which one are you attacking? The one on Cacophonix, you said?
Yeah.
That one, you could describe how you kill it?
Yeah, so I imagine I would just step in front as this creature is trying to wispily approach the hob bard, and Subject actually just intercepts, just bringing this giant almost Warhammer kind of up and then whoop, down with a big long swing, and it goes crashing, kind of thudding into the soft earth below, kind of causing a little miniature crater, as well as just completely deteriorating the wispy form that this creature has.
All right, Swifter. Swifter the Swords, what are you going to do?
All right, so the remaining one is the one that was attacking me originally. Okay, so Swifter Than Swords is going to fully draw his short sword and just in this fluid motion sort of pull it out and turn it into this slash across the creature's torso. Just this very graceful but simplistic movement. There's no energy or movement wasted. That is going to be a 16 to hit. Okay. And that is 3 points of slashing damage from the short sword. Is it still up?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so after the slash, seeing that it's still up, Swifter Than Sword sort of turns the blade down and tucks it behind his back. And then with his free hand, he just rabbit punches this thing in the face using the martial arts monk thing. And that is a nat 20.
Okay, describe how you take out the last one.
So seeing that his sword strike did not slay this creature and hitting him with this punch, he hits him and his fist just kind of keeps going into this creature's sort of slightly corporeal head. And then he just retracts the hand and the creature sort of wobbles, and then just falls face down into the dirt.
Well, you guys, first taste of real combat that you've experienced in your lives. It started off, you guys maybe a little unprepared at first, but once you got everything sorted out, you guys give yourselves a pat on the back, I guess. What would you like?
Sorry, I have a quick question. When they fall to the ground, is there anything left of them?
Yes. The light, you can see as it's fading, it's possibly in their chest, and it fades out. But the light came from their face as well. But once the light starts dimming out, you realize they're not much more than skeletons with with the glowing aura that they had. That was about all there. Looks like just 4 skeletons right now laying on the ground.
So kind of as the last one falls, Cacophonix would go up to the one that hit him, and he would just deliver the most vicious kick that you'd ever seen to this Isle of Bones, and just kick it over and over again.
Seeing this, Swifter Than Swords immediately rushes over to Cacophonix and sort of attempts to sort of grab his shoulder and just says, "We do not desecrate the dead. That is beneath us. We are Hob. Remember this, Cacophonix."
Cacophonix just shrugs off your head and is like, "Don't touch me, man."
"Control yourself, child." And Swifter Than Swords, he's just sort of like looming behind Cacophonix. Definitely still a presence. He hasn't done anything yet, but he's watching to see if the non-pure blood Hob makes any more moves to attack the skeleton.
So Cacophonix would look Swifter Than Swords right in the face, and then as he turns to go, he gives one more swift kick to the skeleton and walks away.
Subject X is leaning, kind of kneeling over one of these skeletons, a different one than the one that's being soccered, and kind of like using the haft of the warhammer as kind of a brace. They're holding out this kind of amethyst inlaid palm, just kind of hovering it over the corpse essentially of these creatures, kind of waving up and down, just these slow, methodic movements. And then after some amount of time, it seems sufficient, I guess, Subject X kind of returns up from taking a knee and just kind of is in a readied, let's go kind of stance.
Roll, I guess, an investigation check.
That's a total of 3.
Okay. All right then. So, you guys, anything else you do here? Are you gonna press on, or
Swifter Than Swords would like to just take a look at these skeletons just to see if there's anything interesting about them. For the one that Cacophonix kicked, he tries to very gingerly sort of assemble it into some sort of restful pose. In fact, he does that with all 4 of them, no matter how long it takes. And when he's done, he takes his dagger and he sort of inscribes the symbol of the Temple of the Pure by each of the bodies as sort of a last rites sort of situation.
Give me an investigation check. And yes.
That's a 12. I thought it was a 1, but it was a 12.
You noticed as you're interacting with the bones, putting them back together, you realize that bones seem a little larger than human. And you realize they're not complete skeletons. While they have heads and bodies, you realize there were with the glow and stuff, there weren't any. They didn't have. They had arms, but no legs exactly. But once you see them, you realize that if they did have legs, they'd actually be towering over you a bit, probably maybe 8-9 feet is a rough estimate. But you can't really tell. They look humanoid, but no features aside from that to distinguish between them.
So they don't have any like distinctive claws or anything, because they were touching us, but they weren't like slashing at us or rolled up.
It was more they were hitting you and somehow draining when they with the glow that was touching you, I guess. Your best guess.
Okay, so sort of seeing this and realizing that these things might be or were probably some sort of malevolent entity, Swifter Than Swords actually takes his dagger and draws a line through the symbols that he put on the ground. And he stands up and immediately just unties Stone and starts walking deeper into the forest without even saying anything, looking visibly disturbed.
Subject X would follow you.
So as Cacophonix hears Subject X move off, then he kind of gets out of his head a little bit and realizes that they're leaving, so he's going to follow him. And as he's walking, he's kind of massaging that arm that is all withered. Doesn't feel quite right to him, right?
So a few days have passed, possibly with the 3 of you, mostly in silence, except when Cacophonix starts probably swearing at someone for getting too close. And you guys make it through the forest. You've seen some lights further in the distance, but nothing close by as you make it through this forest. It begins to open up a little more grassy area. And as you make over a ridge, you see what looks like an encampment. There's some tents, maybe some smoke. Maybe there's campfires and stuff. What would you like to do?
Subject X immediately kind of holds up a fist as, like, upon seeing the smoke on the kind of off in the distance, kind of holds up a fist, kind of just gestures up to the smoke.
I have a feeling these are not the light creatures we encountered in the forest, but we should still be careful. And Swifter Than Swords is actually going to draw his short sword and hold that in his left hand while he holds Stone's reins in his right hand.
this face of mask is just kind of looking at you, swifter than swords, waiting to see what you do.
And Swifter Than Sword sort of wrinkles his lip and just says, "Turn your gaze from me, abomination." And then he glances over at Cacophonix. "What do you think, Half-Blood? What do you suggest?"
I think you should be a little nicer to Metalhead over there.
That was not the question I was asking, and you know it. What should we do about the encampment?
Well, I think we should head on in. I mean, they're just people, right?
I suppose, but I do think we should be cautious. This place is unfamiliar and unsettling. And he sort of squares his shoulders a bit and starts leading Stone down the ridge. Again, his sword still out and unsheathed as he approaches the encampment.
So Cacophonix kind of walks a little bit off to the side of Swifter Than Swords, and as he's going, he kind of starts whistling a tune underneath his breath and kicking the odd pebble here and there. He's obviously trying not to be careful. He's he's just walking.
And as we're walking, Subject X is holding out that same palm, starting at the kind of the top of where the smoke leads, the column of smoke, kind of just like slowly tracing their hand down to kind of where the smoke originates. Just kind of, doing that weird gesture.
So, are you walking down? I know Swifter has a sword up. Are you going to walk down aggressively, like you're looking for a fight, or just more defensive?
I think it's more defensive. So the sword is unsheathed in his left hand, but I think it's more like held to the side with maybe like the sharpened edge facing him. More like this is ready to go if need be. And he does hear Cacophonix's whistling, and he just sort of does that very slow head turn and very slowly turns his head back. And Cacophonix, you just hear him mutter under his breath, "Half-breed."
Like Subject X doesn't really stow their weapon. It's kind of a big, unwieldy warhammer. So, kind of always having it out, using it as a walking stick, kind of just like, holding it near the head, but not quite at the head, just kind of casually, but still at ready at a moment's need. So, but like, we're not like, stomping down this ridge, aggressively. We're just kind of just being wary and cautious and alert is the word I'm looking for. Despite, how...
You muted yourself in mid-sentence.
Yeah. Despite how loud I am and despite how loud the whistler is.
Okay, Subject X, roll a perception check. I'll give you advantage.
You're 16.
So as the three of you start approaching cautiously over to this encampment, you can make out... you can't really make out any maybe some figures here and there, but you can't really see anything with any clarity when all of a sudden you're surrounded by hold on a second here. You are on either side. No, not Tarasques. 8 figures, 4 on each side, appear with crossbows pointed at you. They seem to just been hiding in the foliage, in the grass, and stuff like with like tarps over them, and they just came springing out. They're little on the short side, maybe shorter than even some of the dwarves you've seen back in your community. But they have pointed ears, almost you would say elf-like, maybe somewhere between elf and hob size ears. But I said, and they say, "Freeze! Put your weapons down."
And Swifter Than Swords, he lowers his blade, but he doesn't sheath it. And he just says very calmly, his eyes slowly moving from one figure to another, "We apologize. We are strangers in this land. We come from somewhere else. We were attacked by glowing creatures. They reminded us that an unknown place can be a dangerous place. We do apologize."
Let you know their accent and the way they were pronouncing the words were a little different, but you could make out what they were saying. But after your little speech, some of them were whispering to each other, and they didn't quite understand everything you said, but they repeat, "Put your weapons down."
Subject X doesn't budge, just kind of not standing in a threatening way, but still kind of holding the warhammer, kind of like near the head, just kind of using it again like as a walking stick, just kind of with the butt of it against the ground, not holding it up, not in a threatening way, just like kind of holding it at the side.
Swifter Than Swords will sheath his short sword, but he doesn't drop anything, and his hands are just sort of dangling loosely by his sides as he waits to see what happens next.
So you're still holding the sword?
No, the sword is sheathed. It's back in his belt.
They seem to be whispering again to each other, and one of them points towards the encampment, says, "Move. No sudden movements." And they two of them go behind you, two on either side, and then two in front. Sort of maybe they're leading you. But all of the ones that on the sides and at the back have their weapons trained on you, on their crossbows. Do you guys follow them?
The Cacophonix kind of gives them all kind of the once over, and decides it's probably in his best interest to maybe just follow along, and not do anything too crazy at this point.
Yeah, Subject X remains silent as ever, just calmly, just moving, taking one step ahead of the other, and just kind of plodding along, kind of following the whims of these short-statured assailants that we have now.
Swifter Than Sword sort of clicks his tongue like and tugs on Stone's reins, and he's just sort of leads the mule forward into the encampment.
One question: these people that are around us, do any of them have facial hair?
Some of them do, not all of them.
And how high did you say they were?
A little shorter than the people from the dwarf type size people, and their beards are the ones who have beards or hair. You can see reds and browns and blonde.
Okay.
So they lead you to the encampment, and into the center where it's a little more open, and there's a large tent, and looks like there's a table set up and some people surrounding the table. Once you get a distance away, they tell you to stop, and one of them goes up to speak to someone at the table. He looks over at you. He straightens out his it's a uniform and makes his way over to you. Identify yourselves.
Subject X with their big gauntleted hand will kind of point to the sigil that's kind of emblazoned in the copper of their breastplate. Just kind of just pointing to it with this kind of thick finger, holding kind of, not like, jabbing it, but just kind of like holding it to kind of to point to it.
Is that supposed to mean something? Identify yourselves.
It means the abomination does not speak, but it is known as Subject X. I am swifter than swords. Other one, he sort of nods over at Cacophonix, is Cacophonix. We are strangers in this land. We meant you no harm.
What are you doing here? What allegiances do you hold? Tell me now the easy way, or we could do this the hard way.
And Swifter than Swords sort of like rolls his shoulders, and there's like a couple of cracks. And he just says, there is no need for threats. There is no need for violence. The only allegiance we hold is to our own people, as far as I am aware. And he sort of looks over at Subject X, since he's not entirely sure what sort of allegiances Subject X has. And he sort of clears his throat and reaches down into sort of, I guess it'd be like a cloth tunic, and pulls out his copper symbol of the pure and says, this is the symbol of my temple, the temple of the pure. It is the only allegiance I hold valuable. And then he tucks it back into his shirt. I do not know about you, Cacophonix. Feel free to pipe up at any time.
So while Swifter is talking, Cacophonix is kind of checking out the room, kind of looking around, seeing who else is here besides the 6 guards that took us, or this guy that's talking to us. There are like a bunch of civilians, per se.
Roll an insight check or an investigation.
17.
You feel that they are a little more organized than just simple civilians. You think maybe they are guards of some kind. You don't have much knowledge of anything. Maybe they're an organized group of guards, as far as you can tell. Maybe, but they're definitely not just regular civilians. They probably know their way around weapons and possibly even battle.
Yeah, so Cacophonix kind of goes, says, hey man, I don't know who you are or what war you're fighting, but we have no part of it. We've just been traveling for a week. We come from the mountain, and I'm a musician. I just want to spread my songs throughout the land and, make a name for myself.
He leans over, whispers to one of the guys. You make out a few words, but not maybe not the intent exactly. Seems confused. a bit, and your language is strange. He says a few more things. You make out a few words. You don't know if words or proper names. You don't quite understand. But then he sits. He stands for a moment, almost like it looks like he's meditating. His eyes closed, his hands together, and he steps over to the three of you. Are you standing all in line, or is anyone standing closer?
I imagine that like Swifter than Swords kind of took a step forward, kind of when he was talking or whatever. And I imagine the kind of Subject X is essentially behind him.
Yeah, and Good Cathinix would be kind of to the side and between the two of them. So kind of like a triangle we're kind of making. I like this one.
Oh, he says a few words you don't understand, almost like a chant, and he reaches out his hand up to Swifter. He reaches palm up towards your head, to your forehead. Do you
To Swifter than Swords?
Yes.
So he is immediately going to try and grab that hand. Just like immediately, just like fast as a snake, just trying to grab that hand.
Suddenly, there are crossbows all pointed at you, and a lot more people have shown up. A lot more of these crossbowmen. Some have weapons on them, and they're all the crossbows are pointed at you right now.
So Swifter than Swords, would he see anybody with the crossbow leveled at him at this point as he's moving? Or is he trying to grab this hand?
Sorry, what was that?
So you said the crossbows are all pointed at me now. Are there any like folks in front of us or behind this person who's attempting to touch Swifter than Swords with crossbows out?
There are people behind him. Yes, but it's almost like you're surrounded by a lot more. Probably a lot of people. At least you're saying 50, rough estimate.
Jeez.
It could be more or less. You don't.
Okay, so sensing this, Swifter than Swords stops, like his hand is like moving, and then it's just dead stop, and he just looks at this man about to touch him and says, "You will not touch me until you tell me what it is you plan to do."
I'm attempting to learn your odd dialect.
You could have just said that instead of attempting to touch a total stranger, my friend.
I am, and he says some words you don't understand. And he says, I do not ask for permission.
Sorry, you roboted out a little bit for me. Don't ask for permission.
Yeah, he said some words you didn't understand.
Is there anything else?
And then he said, I don't ask for permission. You are, if I do, you're on your way to becoming prisoners if you do not relent to, I am merely trying to understand your language. And he holds out his hand again to reach your forehead.
Swifter than Swords does not look at all happy about it, but he allows this to happen.
And he touches your forehead, and everyone, except for the immediate ones around you, all the other ones put their weapons down. But they all look ready to pick him up at a moment's notice. And he steps up towards you again, and he speaks to you. You said you're not from around here? He speaks, actually, you're understanding him a little better, almost like the accent is gone. and he says, "Tell me again, where are you from? Who are you?"
I say, we're from the mountains. About a week back, as we've been traveling, and I'm a musician, and I'm here to play music and become known.
Sorry, what was the last part?
Oh, and play music to become known.
You're muted.
I am Iskandar, the head Templar of this unit. Now, since you are not from here, I'm going to give you some leniency, but not much. What is your purpose here? You are all traveling musicians?
No, just me. These guys don't know how to sing. They're just my groupies.
I do not know what a groupie is, but I am sure we are not that.
Where are you from? You're unfamiliar with your people. So Swifter and even Cacophonix have, I guess, look very similar, except Cacophonix's ears and eyes are a little different. And, well, can't tell what Subject X looks like, but
You can tell that Subject X is much kind of like maybe half a foot taller than either of you. So like I'm
you
you're
muted.
in bulkier, but whether or not that's just my armor or actually my physique here, can't tell. But I'm pretty imposing as a figure.
Actually, Karen, I guess we never came up with a name. You've just called it, I guess, just the community. You don't. I guess you don't know unless you guys can come up with a name for it. So let's step back. What do you call your little community? Does it have a proper name? Is that what you guys want to call it? Let's see. We have Respite, the Last City, the Realm of Sanctuary. What do you
Sanctuary
guys-
works for me.
All right. So you guys come from Sanctuary. So what do you want to tell me? He goes, "What are you? I don't know your race and your people, and where are you from?"
We are from Sanctuary, and we are people.
Sanctuary? I've not heard of this place. Where is it? I know all the lands here. I've not heard of the Sanctuary.
It is a small community high up in the mountain. It is of no concern to someone like yourself, I'm sure. We are simple explorers looking to see what this magnificent land has to offer. And can I make like a sleight of hand or something to have like Swifter Than Swords kind of like dig his elbow into Cacophonix's side to like get him to stop like spilling like all this information to this random person?
Sure. Roll a deception check, I guess, would be a little better. And Cacophony, roll an insight. The monk is elbowing you.
I turn and go, get off, old man! What do you want?
And Swifter Than Swords does the slow head turn again and just says very succinctly, I want you to calm down and think about what you are saying. And then he turns his attention back to Iskander and just says, as I said, we are explorers from a humble settlement somewhere on the mountain, high up in the mountain. It is of no concern. We did not mean to intrude.
He was, well, you guys were elbowing each other and stuff. He was talking to one of his someone else. He was talking to them, whispering to them, and stuff. And then he turns back. He almost like he missed that little exchange. He says, "Let's see. Do you follow the teachings?" Or are you heretics?
Do we follow the teachings of who or what exactly?
When Swifter says that, Cacophonix is going to elbow him in the ribs.
You people have strange mannerisms, but the teachings, how do you not know of the teachings? That is all there is.
So Swifter Than Swords feels Cacophonix's elbow in his side, and his lips get turned to like this very hard, thin line, and he just sort of like looks over at Cacophonix and then sort of flicks his eyes at Iskander like, you want to handle this? You handle this, because I'm starting to get a little pissed off at this talk of teachings, and that's all there is. It's starting to grate a bit against his sense of what his religious center would be, or what his moral center would be.
There are the teachings. He looks a little frustrated. The teachings of Connor. Can you give me a name? Yes, give me a name of we'll say like an organization. Maybe we could say a religious organization or something along those lines.
The Emerald Bough. Bough.
It's the teachings of the Emerald Bough. That's all that there is. Do you follow the teachings? Or are you allies of the Belnorn?
We are no allies to the Belmore. But alas, the teachings, we somehow have missed those in our travels. Maybe you could teach us this. Maybe you could sit down with me and teach me this, so we may spread the teachings. And he's going to turn on the charm and try to persuade him to, maybe have some supper with this guy.
Okay, roll, I guess, a persuasion check.
22.
Do you say that you would be friends then? Do you not,
Yeah.
sir? So you do not. You have come across. You do not serve the Belnorn then.
No, we know not of this Belmore.
He looks over at your arm, and he. May I see your arm for a moment? to cacophony.
He'll,
Cacophonics. I don't know what.
yeah, he shows him his own.
He looks at where you were injured. There's while you are healed, there's still some spots that look like they will a little. The flesh is still not fully. The color hasn't returned to it just yet, but he looks it over. You know not of the Belnorn, but you look like you've been touched by them. Explain yourself.
Well, as we were traveling here, these lights set upon us and attacked us. Are these the Belnon you were talking of? Because if that is the truth, then we are obviously not part of them, and must be part friends of yours.
So you were attacked and you survived? Perhaps you're not as incompetent as you look. And he leans in, he speaks to someone next to him, says, "For now, you are guests, but do not test my patience. We will speak more later." And he heads into his tent. And he, the one that he was speaking to nods to him as he leaves and says, "Food, water, come this way." And they lead you to one of the campfires, and they offer you some food and drink.
I would gladly partake.
Swifter Than Swords asks the short creature leading us to the campfire, "Would it be possible to have someone look after my mule or our mule, Stone? I think he might be the only sane person in this place." And then he takes some of the offered food and drink as well.
He calls someone over and he points to the mule, and the other one comes over and takes your mule and leads him off to some other creatures that look like they're all tied up to a post. Jason, what do these creatures look like?
So these creatures look like a combination of like a gazelle and some kind of six-limbed, almost like crustacean-like creature. So they have these six segmented limbs that sprout out of these long, slender bodies. They have the heads of gazelles, and they're covered in this combination of fur and sort of chitinous armor on their legs. And most people refer to them as striders.
Now, there are a few of the guards, the ones with the crossbows that accompanied you, they've left, but a few other ones are standing nearby, keeping an eye on you, but they're a distance away. And the one that was led you here, he's left and says, before he leaves, he says, "Just partake and rest for a bit. We will talk more later." And he leaves as well. Okay. You guys, what do you guys want to do?
So are there any of these short folk around us right now, or they've pretty much left to do their duties?
There are a few that are nearby that are watching you, but not really close.
Okay, so Swifter Than Swords is gonna, I guess, take a bite of whatever food we've been offered, maybe bread of some kind, and swallow, and then he's gonna lean over to Cacophonix and just say very quietly, "This is a strange situation. And he pauses, and then he looks up and says, "You did well talking with that Templar. His fervor, his religious devotion, it concerns me. We should probably learn as much as we can from these people and find a way to leave this camp."
Cacophonix looks at him and says, for once, old man, you and I agree on something. I did a great job.
Hopefully the last time.
And so Cacophonix is gonna eat heartily. He's gonna enjoy the food, the drink, the beverage, and when we've kind of finished eating that, he's gonna pull out his lute and just kind of strum a few notes and chords and just kind of play to himself for a little bit. Let the tension go. Meanwhile, kind of keeping an eye on the surroundings and what people are doing and kind of watching what's going on.
All right, we're gonna take we'll take maybe a 10-15 minute break. Actually, so it's about 10 after now. So we'll say 25 after, and we'll meet back here.
Legends speak of what lies under the helm of the Copper Man. Ages have passed, where tales of his form and figure have passed on by word of mouth, but nonetheless, no one knows for sure who this mysterious man is. Some call him Subject X. Others call him Copperman. Others call him the Smiter. Others call him the Guardian. Who knows for sure who is really right?
Yeah, I know it's a shame couldn't get at least Josh and I. I went to 5 players, hoping I could get 4 into a session. Oh well, these things happen. I had a few things planned. I was hoping for more for the 4th person, but might we'll see how it goes. Might run another half hour. We'll see. It's gonna be a little harder to bring 2 in, I guess. Yes, I can imagine the 3 of you would be interesting. Your campfire talks. One is meditating, one is silent, and the other one is playing an instrument. Okay. Guess everyone's back. Are you all ready?
Yep.
Okay. So let's go back. Go back a bit. Maybe your first time you were you were thrust together. Swifter Than Swords and Cacophonics. Do your characters know each other or seen each other?
So the Temple of the Pure has a extensive library, and they are very welcoming to anyone that has Hob blood in their veins. If Cacophonics would have a reason to be there, I'm sure maybe he ran into Swifter Than Swords at some point. Swifter Than Swords doesn't really get out a lot, so it's not like they would probably bump into each other in the marketplace in Sanctuary, but I mean, it's possible.
Yeah, Cacophonix is kind of the type that if he'd actually met you at any point, he would never ever remembered you anyway, because who are you? So yeah, he's more of the partying type, so I doubt he would have hung out with very many books. That said, he is kind of a curious sight, so he spent a lot of his time kind of exploring Sanctuary and what was outside of Sanctuary down there. So he may have made a trip or 2 into the archives just to check up on something, but yeah, he would never have recognized you.
You've seen one monk, you've seen them all. Well, that still works. You guys didn't know of each other beforehand, and suddenly thrust together. 3 odd people. So, how would I guess Subject X probably wouldn't have said much until they got to their first, I guess, campfire. And how do you guys? Let's go back to the first campfire. I would have guessed that between Swifter Than Swords and Cacophonics, you got enough food and water without probably eating any rations that wouldn't hold well. But you probably maybe hunted some small creature or found some berries or something along the path. How would first would you have done any talking on the trip, Swifter and Cacophonics?
I definitely think that that Swifter would have at least attempted to kind of feel out this other Hob, even though he was not a pure blood Hob, just because in his mind, even a little Hob blood makes you special, makes you worthy of attention and So you would probably try to just see, you know, what kind of person Cacophonix was, and maybe try to, you know, maybe not force any of the teachings of the temple down his throat, but to at least suggest certain things, like the idea of, you know, keeping the bloodlines pure, and sort of putting Hobkind first, which I can't imagine would go over too well with Cacophonix, but he would at least attempt to engage in conversation. Whereas with Subject X, Swifter Than Swords would probably be not so much afraid. I mean, a little put off because it's an entity and you can't see its face, but more sort of disgusted and repulsed by this unnatural, clanking machine man almost that also uses magic, and he's not especially fond of the power that magic has, since absolute power corrupts absolutely. Which is why he's very reluctant to use his own mystical abilities unless he has no other choice. As we saw in the fight with the Baelnorn.
And plus, Subject X used their magic probably right from, you know, minute one, where as they step outside into the outside, Subject X will like reach down into the soil, kind of clasping a palmful, and using the other hand that has the kind of the gem inset into its palm, just kind of like hovering over the handful of soil, and then kind of just dropping the soil back in the ground, and doing similar things with like the various flora and fauna. If you were, you know, any kind of like larger rocks or any odd formations, you'd see Subject X doing the same kind of movement and gestures with their hand. And there's something about it doesn't sit right with you. It doesn't, you know, it's not a natural everyday action that you do. So there definitely must be something magical about it.
Yeah, Cacophonix, well, he likes to talk. He likes, you know, kind of being the center. So he would chat with Swifter, just simply because Swifter's pretty much the only other person here to talk to. And he kind of, I guess at this point, is just kind of like accepted that this guy is here. And whenever Swifter starts talking on about Hobkind or whatever, that's when Cacophonix kind of tunes out, grabs his music and, you know, his instruments, and just starts playing. And as Swifter gets louder and louder, he just kind of drowns him out with louder and louder music until Swifter kind of gets the hint and just maybe stops talking a little bit about that. Meanwhile, he's always kind of looking at Subject X kind of with a wary eye, not so much because he is this metal thing, but more because of the symbol that's on his chest. Cacophonix has had kind of run-ins a little bit with the group, and they're not always been that pleasant of run-ins. So he's kind of wary, and he kind of leaves Subject X to himself and kind of ignores him as best as he can.
I have a question for Swifter Than Swords. The Sanctuary is a heavily magic, like there's magic in everything. And there's a lot of encouragement to interact with others, to essentially be a community, and also there's a lot of intermingling and stuff. How does a purebred or close to purebred hob and a monk deal with a society like that that is so heavily into magic and community and stuff like that?
Well, and definitely he has not completely escaped unscathed from the heavy reliance on magic in the Sanctuary. I think, at least in the Temple of the Pure, the whole idea is it's not just necessarily purity of Hob bloodlines, it's also a purity of the self. You know, this idea of the purity of your mind, of your body, and of your heart. And although magic itself is not inherently evil, you know, this idea of absolute power corrupting absolutely is drilled into the acolytes' heads from a very young age. This idea of yes, power should be used, especially magical power, because it's such a major part of Sanctuary. But at the same time, it should be closely monitored and regulated, not just something you do when you pick up a handful of soil from a strange place, just start like analyzing it. It's something that needs to be tightly regulated. And that is sort of how the Temple of the Pure differentiates itself from the other. It's not really a religious group. It's more of, I guess, it's almost like a societal group, but it does have some sort of religious undertones. That's sort of how it differentiates itself from other religious societies in Sanctuary. As far as the mingling goes, so pure blood Hobbs in the temple, their mating habits, for lack of a better term, they're sort of highly regulated. There's only certain times when they are permitted to mate, and the idea is to keep, the pure blood Hobb lineage going, basically. Swifter Than Swords has not always adhered to that, and actually his he has an apprentice back home who is probably a little more important to him than she should be, for reasons. So yeah, it's definitely, the temple is somewhat isolated because of their beliefs, but it's definitely, I'm not going to say it's flourishing, but they do also welcome those of mixed bloodlines as well. As long as there's some Hobb in them, you are welcome in the Temple of the Pure, basically.
Connor, would you say the Watchtower has conflicting beliefs than the Temple of the Pure?
More like impartial. Because the Watchtower is impartial to the Temple of the Pure. They're very much aware that it exists. They're aware that they have a voice within the community. That's about it. Like, sure, they got a voice. We can use our power and positions of what do you call it? I guess political power to steer many different things. But I wouldn't say that they clash. More just like they exist coincidentally.
When the Watchtower does support, I guess, magic.
Well, absolutely. So I guess the Temple of the Pure probably clashes very heavily with the Watchtower, but the Watchtower is indifferent to the Temple of the Pure. Probably just like like a very the Hobbs probably don't like the Watchtower's weird fingers in everything, fingers in everyone's pudding kind of behavior. Whereas the Watchtower's like, whatever, I got my fingers in your pudding, it's all good. So that's how I imagine they'd interact.
Okay. So now, some of you probably thinking, you're an odd group, but you've been together for about a week now. Pretty complimentary, I guess. Well, at least Cacophonix and Swifter Than Swords have been at least complimentary. You've spoken a bit. Subject X, realize it's good with a weapon and also with some magic, but still probably a little undecided with him. But now, back to the present, you find yourselves at another campfire. It's probably about midday. So, wondering if you've gotten made some potentially new friends, allies, or enemies. So, what are you guys? You guys gonna still chat among yourselves, find someone to talk to, or?
Subject X takes one of those pieces of food that these beings, these people have given to us, and just holds it in this large gauntlet hand and just scans it essentially with that weird ruby or amethyst gem on the other palm. Same way that Subject X has done for dirt, rocks, fauna, small animals, carcasses, even those corpses of those creatures, even the conversation that had been had just moments ago. It seems like the go-to thing for Subject X to do whenever they encounter something new, something interesting. And so I imagine that maybe that this would pique your attention, Cacophonix. I just take this bread food, just kind of hover my hand over it, and then kind of just like put it back on wherever it came from, the little platter set out on a stone or something, and just kind of settle back in my this rough seat that I'm in.
So do you eat anything at all?
You probably haven't eaten. You probably haven't seen Subject X eat yet.
Okay. Cacophonix, I mean, obviously he thinks you're weird. He thinks you're a little unnerving, but he's not going to show it to you. And in fact, he kind of just, he doesn't understand something. It becomes there's nothing to him kind of thing. It's like, whatever. It doesn't exist. I don't have to worry about it. And so he kind of watches you do this with the food, and he just kind of, mentally shrugs, carries on and eats his own meal, and kind of tries to eye around other these people, and he tries to find maybe like a group of them that look a little bit more rowdy than the rest, and that would be the group that he would approach and maybe sit down and try to have a drink or two with them and have a conversation. Try to glean some information about where exactly we are and what's going on.
You find a group that's appears to be off duty. They're around one of the campfires. They're chatting with each other, having something to eat as well. Wouldn't say that they're rowdy. They're still composed, maybe a little bit on alert, but they seem to be a little relaxed as well. And that's what you find at one of the campfires nearby.
Yeah, definitely at least like try to break the ice with them, sit down, and if they'll let me, and I'll have one of my instruments with me at this point. Definitely, and I'll kind of start strumming on the lute and making a little noise while engaging them in conversation about whatever. Can I understand these guys a little bit, or is it really still really tough to understand them?
Aside from the leader, what did I call him? Iskander. The rest of them, they speak common, but it seems to be the same language, but it seems to be different. Either some of the words are different, or maybe that you don't quite make out every word.
So I'll try to spend, I guess, most of the initial time anyway, trying to learn their dialect a little bit, so that I can understand them better. So I'll spend less time talking and more time just kind of strumming quietly while listening to their conversations.
You notice they there is room if you wanted to sit, but they don't. And do you sit down with them, or are you just nearby playing?
No, I'd sit down with them.
Some of them, they stare at you. They're not trying to hide it. And some of them whispering to each other, and anyone you sit next to, they might move away a little, but not like they won't get up and move to another seat. They'll just move a bit away, giving you some space. And anywhere nearby you, some of the conversations might die down, but further on the other side, there, you can see there some are whispering to each other, looking at you.
Yeah, I'll just continue sitting there, strumming, listening, trying not to look too imposing, because it's hard for me not to do, but I'll, just try to chillax, let them, just kind of get comfortable with me. I will kind of ignore the fact that they move away a little bit. I'll pretend I don't notice. I'll pretend I don't notice that the conversations have died down. I'm pretty much going to put on the air that I feel comfortable right where I'm at, and that they should be comfortable with me as well.
All right. What are the rest of you doing when Cacophonix wanders off with his with one of his instruments?
So Swifter Than Swords is going to look around for like an older member of this community, and just sort of approach them as casually as possible, and maybe sort of show this individual like some of the different items that he's brought from home. His copper symbol of the pure. He has a sort of an ornately carved wooden scroll case that he has just a bunch of notes just written on, sort of scrawled on in this chicken scratch handwriting. And just try to engage this individual with just simple questions, nothing too intrusive. What is the name of this race of people, since there's nothing like that back at the mountain. Definitely trying to keep any sort of information specific to Sanctuary as vague as possible, because something about Iskander has sort of unsettled him a bit, particularly how militant he is and how interested he was in where we came from. But yeah, just simple questions if this individual is willing to engage, and if not, he'd just go wander off and find somebody else.
As you go and wandering around, you don't see anyone that you can immediately identify as older. Like, there are some that are older, but not anyone, like not I guess someone in their late age, maybe middle age at the most. There might be a couple here and there, but and then as you start wandering around, progressing a little further, you do notice that some of them that were with the crossbows are keeping an eye on you. And if you try to proceed any much further than the campfire area, they do step not directly in front of you, but they sort of block your way a bit.
So seeing this, Swifter Than Swords actually turns to these crossbow wielding individuals, and he sort of just sits down in front of them like cross-legged, and he just starts asking them just various questions about who Iskander is, what it means to be a Templar. Are they part of the Templars? It's very, I don't want to say congenial, but it's just very sort of simple, pleasant talk, just a low, calm voice, no sudden movements. Just trying to put them at ease while still making sure they recognize that the individual in front of them is quite capable of doing some damage.
The two that sort of you sat down in front, at first they don't seem to be paying attention enough to you, like they're watching you, but not really trying to be like engaged with you. But one of them, who I guess he picks up a few of your words and says, "We are all Templar. We follow the teachings." And then the other one elbows him, and he stands back at almost like at attention again.
So Swifter Than Swords notices this and sort of leans forward, his hands on his knees, and just says, Tell me more about these teachings. I am curious. If it is permitted, I would not want to get anyone in trouble.
They say, all right. Megan, can you give me a name?
Who?
Megan, if you can give me a name.
Me, Karen.
Megan?
I said Megan. Oh boy.
I'm like, she's upstairs playing a different game. What are you talking about?
Yeah, can you go upstairs and call her?
So what do you need to say?
Sorry.
Um,
I'm still high on drugs, on the prescriptions that I'm on. So,
Dolath.
sorry,
Dolath.
Dolath.
Solath. S.
The one that was didn't respond to you at first said, "Speak with Solath." Back to the campfire. We'll wait there.
And Swifter Than Swords inclines his head and stands back up and starts moving back towards the campfire.
They accompany you there. Once you're back at the campfire, the younger one goes off. See, Connor, was Subject X doing anything when left all alone?
Yeah, I was going to say, meanwhile, as Subject X finds themselves kind of alone in this area. Whoops. Boom, boom, boom. Does things still work? Cool. All right. I just casually broke it. So, like, as everyone kind of departs, Subject X is just kind of sitting, kind of staring, I guess, lifelessly into the flickering flames. And all of a sudden, a ding happens. Subject X reaches a kind of a finger up to their helmet, pauses, and then reaches for the morsel of food that's kind of been set back on the platter in front of them. Kind of reaches and grabs it, and with the other big hand, you hear the unclasping of this thick helmet as with the hand just kind of pulls it down. We fade to black as Swifter Than Swords is accompanied back into the campfire, and Subject X is still sitting there, helmeted, staring into the fire, and there's a piece of food missing.
Connor, as I said, there were still other guards nearby when you took off your helmet. Would you still have done that? Like you're left alone. Your party left you alone. But there were some. If you looked around, there were still guards nearby that may not have been paying you with any direct attention.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be fine.
Okay, so Swifter, do you say? So you just go and sit down by the fire?
Yeah, Swifter Than Swords sort of walks back to the fire, looks at Subject X for a moment. Question: Can we see the mountain from where we are, or no? It's too far away.
From where you are sitting, you can't get a good look. Like it's not a clear line of sight, and maybe there's a bit of a haze, or the trees. I guess you can't get a look at it from where you are right now.
Okay, so he'll just sort of look in that general direction, the general direction of the mountain, and he just sort of, this very somber look crosses his face, and he sort of presses his hand against his chest and sort of pushes his hand into his chest for a moment, sighs, and then kind of looks around waiting for Solath to show up.
And someone does show up. The guard comes back, and accompanying him is another one of these people, and he seems all the other ones have maybe like a tabard or robe-like stuff covering, but you can tell that they might have some armor underneath. Some of them, and this one here is in full robes. Looks a little less, we'll say, militant. He comes up to you, and he starts chanting a bit and reaches out, but he doesn't touch you. Reaches out towards you with his hand.
So would Swifter Than Swords recognize this same, I'm assuming, like comprehend languages spell that was cast before, or does this sound totally different?
It sounds similar to what the with Iskander was doing, but nothing you would have seen before, but only Iskander, something similar to what he did. It's almost like he had his eyes closed, chanting, and then reached out his hand, but he didn't. But he's waiting for you to, when we give him permission.
Yeah. So Swifter Than Swords will actually sort of lower his. Actually, he'll touch his hand against this smaller creature's hand, so that they can go ahead and establish that connection, and have the spell take effect.
Solathia appears a little shorter than some of the other ones you've seen, and he's looking. He wants to reach your forehead, but like when you put your hand out in front, he touches the top of it, and while he's chanting, he says, "Yes, your customs are a little, mannerisms are a little strange, but," and he's speaking fluently. You understand with note. You understand all the words he's saying. So you wanted to know more about the teachings and about us. Is that correct?
Yes, Solath. We are explorers in this strange place, and I am curious. I have never seen anyone quite like your people before, and it is why we are here, to see what this land has to offer, for good or for ill.
Are you able to tell me where your people are from? What are your people? I have not seen those quite like you.
So Swifter Than Swords sort of gestures to himself and says, I am a hob, and Cacophonix, and he sort of looks around and realizes that Cacophonix has still not returned from whatever he's doing, and he sort of sighs. He's like, ugh. And the other one that looks somewhat like me is also hob, but only partially. And the other one, I'm not sure, but as I said, our people are called hobs. There are other races that live where we come from, dwarves, humans, elves. It is a crowded place on the mountain.
Well, so where you're from, this mountain, you do not have the teachings of the Emerald Bow?
We do not. And as I said, we have never seen people like you before, which is why I'm curious to learn everything that you have to tell us, including the teachings and what does it mean to be Templar? One of the guards said that I asked him if they were Templars, and he said, we are all Templar. Is this true? What does that mean?
Templars are uh, best way to describe, they are the enforcers of the teachings. We find those heretics and Belnorn, those who do not follow the teachings and who are opposed to the teachings. And we hunt down these abominations and heretics.
And what exactly are the Baelnorn, those creatures of light that attacked us? Are they mortal? Are they spirits? I've never seen something like that before. Of course, we've never been to this land, so anything that I see here I've probably never seen before, but it was to see those creatures. I think you're muted there.
They are demons. They are neither alive nor dead. They created by foul magics, and our main goal here is to destroy them and find out this where they are spawned.
But one of your people, they noticed that Cacophonix's arm, the arm that had been touched by the Baelnorn was withered, and they asked if Cacophonix served the Baelnorn. Do some of your kind serve these demons? Are there other groups of people that serve the Baelnorn willingly?
There are those who don't follow the teachings, the heretics, but we don't speak of them, and they are opposed to all the teachings, and whether they, I believe, we believe they're allies of the Baelnorn, because why else would they reject the teachings?
And what exactly do the teachings say? These teachings of the Emerald Bough?
He goes over some of their beliefs and things that are, a lot of it's hard. He doesn't go about into reading it word for word, but this goes on to explain that his people, let's see, the Veloi, Veloi, they are the chosen ones. They are the primary people, and there are other races as well, but they are lesser, but still, as long as they follow the teachings, they are allowed to go about their lives as well. And what little he tells you of the teachings, it's more. Let's see, roll see a persuasion check to see how much tells you.
That's a 5.
Primarily, the teachings serve to instruct us on how to live our lives, but essentially, we are against. We have to remove all abominations, such as these demons, the Baelnorn. Connor, can Subject X roll I'm gonna say roll an intelligence check. It's a straight up one.
That'll be for a
And
grand total of 13.
How much attention are you paying a lot of attention to the conversation that they're having?
High attention. In addition, having my palm outstretched, kind of facing them. Their conversation.
The Belnorn, you pick up part of the word Bale sounds very similar to a word that you know in a different language. That does mean demon, but you don't quite. It's close, but yes. But yeah, it is. But the way, yeah, actually, it's the word that you know is Baal. It does mean demon, but it does sound. You realize that he's saying it more in his language, and you're learning. So it could be the same. It does sound a little different, but that's the closest you can. You think that so? What they are saying does make some sense, at least with the wording that they're using.
Yeah, and Subject X would tell this to no one because Subject X does not talk. So just listening avidly at this conversation, like unmoving, like not even like a swaying or anything, just like a completely still, kind of palm resting on their knee, kind of in a casual position of sitting, but in such a way that the palm is outstretched, the little gem kind of facing the conversation of the Hob and this Templar. Their conversation, but like just staring intently with these steel blue goggles that unblink. So
Okay, Karen, um, you've tried to entertain some of these guards a bit. They don't seem to be warming up to you, but let's try perhaps a perform check and see how well you're playing for them.
16.
You think they seem to the ones that seem to be looking at you, but no one seems to be reacting to your performance. Even though you think this is probably one of your better performances, there's no acknowledgement regarding it.
Yeah, there's no accounting for taste, I guess, with some people. But keep playing on. Does their conversations go back to normal?
Roll a perception check.
13.
Some of them seem to be talking perhaps as you progressed in playing, that maybe some, while they still keep are aware of you, they seem to almost ignore you, but they seem to, once further away, talk more in whispers. You pick out a few things, but nothing that really grabs your attention, except that maybe they talked about they haven't seen Bill Norton in a couple days. some of them are maybe itching for another fight or something like that along those lines. You do notice at your little camp fire, there is a small Valoy speaking with your allies. Let's say friends, because friends is probably a stretch at this point.
Yeah, I'm gonna kind of keep an eye on that. But I'm glad that there's conversation being had over there, and I don't feel that it would be right to go and interrupt it at this point. So I'm going to just stay here, continue doing what I'm doing, and hopefully I will become like white noise almost, that they'll forget really that I'm kind of here. Like I'm not going anywhere, and maybe they'll just get used to the fact that I'm just there, and they'll go back to being a little normal, at which point then I can listen in and see what they're doing. What time of day is it becoming?
It's just after midday. And so you guys have just had your midday meal, and as progressing, there looks like there's maybe a shift change, and this group gets up and leaves, and maybe another group come in, and they look on you a little warily, but they probably act pretty much the same way as the previous group.
Yeah, I'll just keep acting like I belong where I'm at, and I'm in no rush to go anywhere. I keep an eye on, my party members, and as long as they're fine, I'm just going to sit here and try to blend in with the surroundings as best as I can. That I stick out like a circle.
All right, the two of you, Solath goes on to talk about the Belnorn, describes them as undead demons and stuff, using all kinds of similar type names, and says that they're neither alive nor dead, power possessed by some unholy arcane magic, some unholy magics that give them a sense of life. Usually, it's almost, or maybe they never truly died. Usually, skeletons of some sort, possessed with this eerie glow within them, maybe remnants of their hearts, but they were. Just goes on. Those are about the bulk of pretty much what he's been telling you about them. His description.
So Swifter Than Swords sort of sits back on the bench he's sitting on and frowns a bit, and he says, "You know so much about these creatures, but surely your people, they do other things besides fight these monsters. What else do the Valoy do?"
Since we're not at that point in our trust to tell you everything about us,
Of course.
but we are essentially the protectors, the chosen ones to follow, to bring the teachings, to interpret the teachings of the Emerald Bow, of the Emerald Bow, and perhaps when you've gained a little more our trust. And he goes, I have my duties to attend to.
And gain a little more of your trust. Solat.
Iskandar and I are that's going to discuss that with Iskandar. We might have some ways you can do that, but we need to discuss it first.
Of course. Is there anything else you can tell me without getting in trouble?
Roll a persuasion check.
That's a 6. One better than last time.
Feel like you're making a little bit of headway, but he still seems a little resistant to tell you any more than just the basics. And he says, perhaps once I've spoken with Iskandar and take my leave. And he gets up and he heads over to the larger tent where Iskandar was in.
So the Swords actually looks over at Subject X. Is Subject X's hand still out with the gem and everything? Okay. So he looks like he's about to say something to Subject X, and then he sees the palm with the gem pointed at him, and it's just like this just stone face frown, just like pure old man grumpiness and disgust, and he just turns away. He actually starts rummaging through his backpack, and he pulls out like these little clay, fired clay containers of paint and some brushes, and he actually starts painting the symbol of the pure on his gray skin, just like almost like a ritual type thing, as he waits for Cacophonix to come back, or for Solith to come back, or someone to say what's going to happen next to this group.
And as you start to paint on yourself, and Solith is kind of left, I guess the palm would turn inward and close again. But Subject X continues just to sit there, solemnly, quietly, without a word, without a peep, but the steep, loud breathing underneath this headgear.
Now, the day progresses. That you don't, Solath or Iskandar don't reappear. So, is there anything you're still going to wait? It's getting towards evening, unless you wanted to do something.
I'll head back to the other two after a little while. When I notice Solath disappears and then he doesn't come back, I will probably, if the people around me are still not talking very well, then I'll just, kind of pack it in as a kind of failed attempt to mesh in with them and head back to the other two people.
Noticed as you head back, I guess your personal guards follow you at a distance, just keeping an eye on you. And any of them not directly watching over you, anyone's walking by, you might get a... They actually don't even pay attention. They're walking perfectly, almost like they have a single purpose, and the ones that seem to be on duty or doing something, the only ones that even looked at you, aside from your own guards, were the ones that that were off duty. But none of them seem to be. If they have a task, they seem to be focused on it as you head back. So, guys are probably getting a little restless. You guys still waiting to hear from either Solath or Iskandar. And more food is brought out. Um, and stuff. And then anything you're just gonna sit there quietly waiting?
No, so Swifter Than Swords sees Cacophonix approach, and he sort of gestures for the younger half-breed hob to come close, and he sort of shares everything that Solath told him with Cacophonix, and I'm assuming with Subject X, though he does not beckon Subject X closer. And then he finishes by saying, I am concerned by how militant these people are. This idea that they are chosen to defeat these demons, it seems to consume them. And while it seems to be a noble goal, it worries me. And I think it is worth our time to try and build their trust. Perhaps after we are certain they do not have any ill intent, we could establish some kind of trade with Sanctuary, but I do not think, and he looks pointedly at Cacophonix, I do not think we should tell them anything specific about home until we are sure that we can trust them. Because, to be honest, the way they have treated us, I understand that we are strange looking and they do not know exactly where we come from, but I am concerned about them, and these teachings of the Emerald Bow, he sort of shifts uncomfortably. His newly painted skin sort of glistening in the firelight. I am uneasy, and they have kept us waiting for far too long. I cannot help but think that something is wrong.
I completely agree with you. These people don't know anything about music at all. It's driving me nuts.
And he sort of like pauses, and then he looks over at Subject X and just sort of sighs, and then he gets up and he's like, yes, let's go talk to them about their taste in music. Are you two coming with me? And he starts to walk towards the large tent.
You hear the creaking and groaning of copper on copper, kind of as Subject X stands up, as the plates kind of grind against each other, and then kind of just everything kind of pops into place, and a Subject X would follow behind you.
Cacophonix would let out a big sigh because, he just sat back down. So, he just got here. But whatever. We're going. So he'll get up and go with them.
Where are you guys headed?
So Swifter Than Swords is heading purposefully but not aggressively towards the large tent where we talked with Iskandar before, to try and see if he can figure out what the delay is about.
As you get up, your we'll call it an honor guard. They have actually changed, so it's not the same ones that were there originally. They do follow you, and as you arrive at the at Iskandar's tent, there are other guards there, and these ones have we'll say pikes in their hands, and they keep you from getting any closer. And but Iskandar and Solath do come out just as you're approaching, and Iskandar steps up to you and says, in the interest of becoming friends and potentially allies, we've had a bit of a mistrust because we don't know you or your people very well. But perhaps if you are willing to help us out, prove your loyalty to the teachings of the Emerald Bow, and help us in our fight against the Belnorn. Would you
At
be
that,
willing?
Subject X kind of turn to the side, facing kind of directly at Swifter than Swords, and Subject X would kind of outstretch that palm hand, kind of just face up, and it kind of hums with a kind of purplishness, and immediately a little, almost like hologram kind of projection, very miniature in size, appears from it, and it is just of kind of a kind of not an animation, but like a kind of a looped animation, I guess, of us as an ensemble, just like smiting down these creatures earlier, about 3 days ago, with relative ease. Just like, you know, you and your fists and the swords and whatnot, right? Kind of just that, like a little image, maybe for 5 or so seconds, would appear, and then Subject X kind of closes their hand again.
As you do that, there's a lot of murmurs from all the guards until Iskandar gives them a stern look, and they snap to attention again, and says, "So you'll be willing to help us then? This will help garner some trust between our people. In the morning, we will send out to defeat one of the, where we think is one of their points of their centers of power." Sure. You can roll. The two of you can roll an Arcana check to see what you can identify what spell if you wanted to. See if you've come across it before.
Yeah, that's a 5. Swifter than Swords has no idea.
You're pretty sure magic was cast, but you're not. Well, yeah, you would. Yeah, you would know what it is. Cacophonics, and it's a little different than maybe the way you go about it, but you're pretty sure it was the same. It is a minor illusion spell.
So Swifter than Swords sort of looks from Solath to Iskander, and he says, "We will help you in the interest of a mutual friendship, but understand that this is not, we are not committing our people, our town, our home to this conflict between you and the Belnorn. We are happy to assist you if it means that there will be more trust and openness between our two groups, but understand this is not us committing resources to a war effort. Is that acceptable for you?"
We can discuss future terms and negotiations after you prove that we can trust you. But in the interest of, if you accept this, then we will also offer some something as to prove that you can trust us. We have found some other strange people before, and they have similar features to you two. One of them has ears such as yours, a little shorter, pointing to Swifter Than Swords. Ears similar to yours, not as long as yours, motioning to Cacophonics, but her eyes are brightly colored such as yours. One blue and one of violet. But the other one did have ears like yours. They looked pretty similar, the two of them, different than you, except for the ears and the eyes. The other one was a large being with longer pointed ears, and he has a tattoo on his arm similar in designs to you. We don't wear these tattoos.
Mhm.
But he has tattoos as well, and they dress similarly to you. Perhaps they are from your village.
Perhaps. How long have these people been your guests?
Uh, we found them a few days ago. Just the two of them. She's not here. We found them maybe 4 or 5 days ago. They were wandering by themselves.
And you wish for them to accompany us to this source of Belnorn power.
Believe that you are from the same place as them, from what little information you have given us and what they have given us. So perhaps for the night you can rest, and then in the morning you can set out and prove that we can trust you.
That is acceptable to me. One thing I would request is that in the morning you give us as much information as you can about these Belnorn so we can better defeat them. If we are going to a lair, we should probably know more about them.
Yes, in the morning we will give you what information we have on this place of power and on the Belnorn. But just rest. A tent will be provided for you.
That is most generous. Thank you. Wait, one tent for all of us?
They're providing a large enough tent that you can fit.
All right, that's fine.
Okay. Is there anything else you wanted to ask or do? If not, I'm going to. I know it's a bit earlier than you said, but I think that's a good spot to leave it off at. So we'll go through if there's any. Yes, we'll go through if there's anything else you wanted to. Any outros you wanted to do? We'll go with Karen first.
Yeah, so Phoenix was kind of quiet throughout this last bargaining session because, frankly, he really doesn't care. I mean, what are we doing out here? We're just out here to explore and, see what's out here. So work with these guys, work with those guys, whatever, as long as we get to, carry on living, that'd be great. So, yeah, as soon as they, let us know where the tent is, he kind of, packs it in for the evening. Got nothing else to do. These people don't appreciate good music, so I've had it.
So after the end of the conversation with Soloth and Iskander, Swifter Than Swords goes to check on Stone first with the Striders. And I'm assuming Stone is probably, I mean, he's fine, but he's probably a little shook up being around these strange gazelle crab hybrids. He's sort of, Swifter Than Swords sort of like rubs him down a bit, maybe feeds him like some little pieces of fruit and dried vegetables from his rations. And then he starts to head towards the tent, but then he stops, just sort of standing in the encampment surrounded by these strange, unfamiliar people. And he looks again back in the general direction of where Sanctuary would be. And he sort of, it's just this strange sort of, not, it's almost like a broken look crosses his face as he stares up at the mountain, or in the direction of the mountain. And he sighs, and then he moves back or towards the tent, and he meditates for a bit, then sleeps for the night.
Subject X is sitting kind of cross-legged on this bedroll that's been provided. They're still clad in this copper leather armor, but kind of on their lap, floating up above their palm, is this hologram, kind of this image that's kind of being conjured by this magic that Subject X has, that he's been imbued with. And it's playing the words, kind of the dialogue that happened prior. Others like you, kind of thing, just like kind of focusing in on the lip movements. Others like you. And that's when we'll end the scene.
All right. Thank you, everyone who may have been watching this or will watch this. And we conclude our first session of The Outside. Thank you.